Hi, everyone. On today's episode of the Mayor's Table, we're approaching the end of 2024, and I want to make sure we give you a full update on projects that are currently happening, and there's no better person in the city to give those updates than Deputy City Manager Julie Baird. Julie's approaching a 30-year career with municipal government. Her expansive knowledge and understanding of how projects work has really played out for your benefit here in our city. So stay tuned for great information. Make sure you like and share, as they say. You won't want to miss it. Happy holidays, everyone. Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett with you today, and we have a special guest, the Deputy City Manager of the City of Farmington, Julie Baird. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Mayor.
I would say that we had tried to get you on here many, many times, and you've always found a way not to, but we have not had you on because you're always working so hard. That's what I figured out.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But now you're coming up upon retirement, and we thought we need to get Julie on here because, for those who don't know, as a deputy city manager and somebody who has an extensive background in municipal government and someone who carries with them probably the key to understanding an immense amount of projects and grants and this giant world that we are so blessed here in the city of Farmington to have access to through you, you carry a lot of that burden. And I thought it would be great to get you on here to talk about yourself, things that we're doing, and kind of leave on a bang.
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor. I thoroughly enjoy the projects and thoroughly enjoy the things that we've been doing here with the City of Farmington. You all, the mayor, council, just the team that we have right now is tremendous. And it is the team that I work with that really makes it special. All of our departments come together. It isn't just me doing these projects. It might be me poking all the departments at various points and times during the project, but bringing it together and getting it done. And the grants are just the fun part of it. When we get them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a big puzzle. See what you can do to leverage taxpayers' money, bring in other money, make our hard-earned dollars for the city of Farmington go further.
Well, you've been dedicated to that end, and we've recently received a report on kind of the success that we've had in that realm. And many people have reached out to me over the past few years talking about, well, have you guys gone out for this grant? Did you see that this grant's available for this thing? And I'm very diligent about forwarding anything on. And I get great response. Mayor, we're on it. We're working on that right now, or we're already getting, responses back for these things. But I believe the most recent report showed that we had brought in somewhere around $65 million in grant money, and that included our $40 million project for Pinion Hills, but regardless, it's part of that dollar amount. $65 million, and I believe our expense on that was, if
we're including the Pinion Hills Pinion Hills extension, we're probably about $15 million local.
Yeah, and even just alone, I know I've got my list of projects here, but the All Abilities Park, the Boundless Journey Adventure Park, for Phase 1, it was a $5.1 million expense, and we'd only spent $500,000 of local money. Now, some of that, of course, came from donations.
Absolutely.
But a lot of it came from grant dollars being made available through the federal government.
So the All Abilities Park is a great example. The All Abilities Park has certainly federal funds through the state, through their Regional Recreation and Quality of Life grant. And we were able to put that with the local foundation. Tippett's All Abilities Park Foundation has been tremendous support for this. They really are the ones out there beating the bushes, bringing in the dollars, making everyone, cheer along the process.
Sure.
And get it going. And so their funds really are helping match that $3 million from the state. And then the other segment for that project is actually CDBG. So that's Community Development Block Grant funds from the federal government because we have to do some upgrades, ADA, accessibility. We want to do some enhancements to that, what was the old library at the old Tibbetts site. And so the CDBG funds, a little bit more of the TAP Foundation dollars, and then, as you said, some CTED dollars that put in for both of those.
It takes a dedicated group of people to really go after this money, and having talked to other mayors and other administrators throughout the state, there's a lot of communities in our state who don't have the kind of resources, namely in people and personnel, in order to go after these, and certainly to achieve the success levels that we have. So thank you to you and your staff for doing that. Your story in municipal government is extensive. I wondered if you could give us kind of an idea, like what made you want to get into municipal government? What was your first position, and kind of what that roadmap has looked like?
So I'll be honest, my goal was not to get into municipal government. My goal was to run a museum. So that's really what my education and background was in, and I had gone to graduate school in Washington, D.C., and did internships at Smithsonian, and as the student loans were cranking up and was bleeding cash there in the expensive kind of East Coast area, I needed to get back to the Southwest. I grew up out here in the Southwest, and I wanted to get back. And I really lucked out. I landed here in kind of heart of the Four Corners, Farmington, and came here to be the director of the museum. And so it was a municipal museum, so that's where the municipal government's part of it came in.
And was that after the museum, which I think it was Gateway Museum when we initially built it, right? Had that been built yet?
No, it had not been built.
Okay.
So, and I came in '92, and the museum was still on Orchard. And so it was really just in that one facility on Orchard, and then the small rock house across the street. So we had collections crammed here, there, and everywhere, and still trying to do room for education. We had the children's area, and exhibitions. And so it was part of one of the 0.25% gross receipt tax, sunset taxes that was done in early and mid 90s, that was passed for recreational facilities, and the museum and Gateway and the Nature Center and the barn was all part of that.
Wow. And that museum, of course, has taken on a lot of different shapes, the new one, and a lot of plans that have come and gone, and new plans now that are part of my list of things to kind of get into today. But after leaving, or how long did you serve in that role as director?
So I was here for 10 years
Okay.
there at the museum, and I did see it through the construction, the development, the construction, opening, and operations for 2 years there at Gateway and the Nature Center and the barn, and then reopening the old facility as the Children's Museum. And then I left the area for a couple of years, and came back, and the museum, there aren't that many museums here, but
Yeah.
it was worth coming back to the area anyway. And it was actually the grant writing. It was the grant writing and the project management that really secured me a position over with City of Bloomfield.
Okay.
Running their projects, doing their grant writing. And I did that for a little over 5 years.
So you've been doing this part since, for 20 years, working on the projects and grants component.
Right. And again, it's the trying to make the fit of the grant that you're going after, fit the project that you're doing, how many others can you get in there to leverage those funds as much as possible, and then obviously see the project through and get it done and completed. And so that was that realm of that. And people have heard me say before, begging for money for the arts, begging for money for roads is basically the same thing. You just need to get a whole lot of other engineers to review what you're saying. Make sure that you're accurate. And so it was built on that foundation of writing grants. But because of that, I was introduced to road projects and water projects and wastewater projects and economic development projects. So it was really there that I started broadening that municipal information knowledge.
So you were in Bloomfield for 5 years. After that, did you come back to the city of Farmington?
I did.
And were you general services when you came back?
I actually came back for about a year and a half to run the Civic Center.
Okay.
So I was at the Civic Center for a short period of time, and that was fun. I mean, I had done a little bit of help with the Civic Center in that first 10 years stint with the Farmington when I was there with the museum. And so coming back there, I think one summer we did Fiddler on the Roof, and the next summer we did Joseph. And so it was fun to kind of be back in that realm again.
Right.
But yes, eventually became General Services Director. So again, back into projects, adding just the general facility maintenance components and vehicle maintenance.
Again, just kind of spreading your wings and encompassing all that goes on with municipal government. The only place you probably haven't been is police department or fire department on that public safety side, but writing grants for them.
Writing grants for them. We built the fire station, Station 1 in the administration building. Of course, right now we're going through the process to get PD finally into a new building.
Yes.
So a little bit of touching on those projects, but just, those departments by way of construction.
I love it. And in your mind, I mean, based on everything you've done, what have you enjoyed the most out of your career, which is, you said 2001 when you came, 2002 when you came here. Oh, no, 92.
92.
Just
yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. So, it's varied a lot. I think that obviously the projects and the construction and seeing those through is probably my favorite part. Obviously there's aspects of the museum that will always be kind of a favorite part. But it's been being able to see something done well for the community.
Well, I will tell you that since 2019, we've put quite a load on you, just in regards to kind of what this council's vision and focus has been, which has been that community transformation and economic diversification. So all of these projects and things that I want to get into today are really stemming from this community support for this broad vision and idea that we could no longer sit on the sideline and wait for things to happen, that we had to kind of kick ourselves into gear and start funding some things that would help benefiting what I would say is the quality of life here in Farmington, New Mexico, and the potential to kind of provide a landscape, a canvas for new business, entrepreneurship, for expanding businesses to relocate here, as well as retirees and remote workers, and kind of all these things built around the great things that we have to have as kind of this island community out here in the middle of the Four Corners. So your work in helping us achieve these things has been tremendous. So I want to kind of jump into it and kind of dig into what we just recently had talked about in a council meeting and just give people an idea. This was a council meeting in October.
Yes.
I believe it was the 15th, somewhere in there. So if you want to go back and watch it, you can watch it live or recorded, but it was live. And we'll go through these things. So first, one project that I know we had just completed right when before October was the Worley Field project, near and dear to me and you, I'm sure. But that Worley Field project has been completed. It was used for Connie Mack. It's going to be better than ever even next year. But the compliments that we received, I think, have to make you feel good about the work that was done, because the Connie Mack coaches who came through were all like, wow, I can't believe that you guys did this to the second field. And I think it really, I think it's going to pay dividends in the long run.
Worley was a great project, and something that really needed to give that field a little love and attention. Ricketts, for so long, being the premier field that we have, gets a lot of that attention, certainly through Connie Mack, and then you don't realize really how many other games are played, outside of Ricketts and even in Farmington leading up to that. So
Right.
Worley was it was fun to see the interest on that project. I can't say I have that many projects where you have the same guys driving by on a at least weekly basis, just checking on progress.
I'm guilty.
But we did that. We did have that for Worley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a special project, and again, I got to think from your point of view, and I think most people would be very surprised by the cost of doing any type of project, and then in Worley's case, just the kind of boundaries that we kept running into because of a natural gas line that was right there on the field that kind of pushed us and kept us in a box from what we could do. But I think it turned out fantastic, and it's going to be a great place for the next 60 years. And I do want to kind of mention that timeline, the 60-year timeline. A lot of what we have been dealing with over the past 10 years has been facilities who've reached the end of life, so to speak. Whether it was the Brookside Pool that is now Bisti Bay, or whether it's water lines and all the water line projects, or the water treatment plants, or all those things have now reached that lifespan point. And so we have been fortunate through our Community Transformation and Economic Diversification Fund to have some dollars built in there to help relieve some of the financial pressures that we wouldn't have the new Bisti Bay Water Park. We wouldn't have monies to go explore the potential replacement for Lions Pool. We wouldn't have the ability to renovate golf courses and things that are so important to this community. And that's one thing that I've learned. Well, where my kids may be older and I no longer go to the E3 Children's Museum, I'll tell you what, there's a whole population here whose kids love that place, and that's their favorite place, and we better do everything we can to keep it open and make sure that it grows and gets better. I mean, that's what it is. So I'm sure you've seen that throughout your years and have quite a good perspective on how that looks.
Well, as you mentioned, having been part of General Services and being the one who is always seems to be bringing the bad news, another roof, another HVAC unit, another sewer line's collapsed, another, you daily you are dealing with the aging infrastructure of municipal buildings. And it is what it is, but at the same time, you've got to realize that there's that constant need for maintenance and upkeep. And that's one thing when it's just your regular support facilities, but then when it's a public-facing building, when it's a public activity building, where whether that's a golf course or whether it's a ball field, pool, those are things that our citizens almost love to death. I mean, they're overused to some extent, well used, and so wanting to keep those assets going can be a little painful financially, and then certainly time-wise. I mean, Worley took a lot longer than we really wanted, and you mentioned the constraints of the site. You were always running into those issues.
Yeah, it's funny. We use the term 58 parks and facilities when we talk about parks and recreation, cultural affairs, but if you look at the whole city and the number of buildings associated with the operations part of it, the parking lots where employees of the city are parking, not just public coming in for services. It's a big risk to carry, so to speak, because every one of those things requires long-term maintenance and at some point rebuilds. Right. And we've gone through a lot of that over this past, since I've been on council, which is now 10 years. We've gone through a lot of those buildings. I mean, I've seen our Civic Center completely redone. Yes. We've seen a new facade on City Hall and upgrades to our clerk's office to allow for better customer service. Those were kind of the early things, and then you move into the downtown renovation. Bisti Bay, you've got pickleball courts now that we never had before. And the pickleball is a great example of we love it to death. Yeah. I mean, it is such a popular sport, and it's only growing. And the demand for more courts, Julie, you're not going to be here for the next iteration, but we got to have 12 more courts. I mean, that's the consensus. So where are we going to get it from? How are we going to do it? Where are we going to put it? Those are all questions, of course, as a project manager. You've been just so dynamic at helping us solve.
The next projects that come along, is a whole nother phase, a whole nother fun layer of things. But we have a lot going on now.
We do, and that's part of what I wanted to do today. Is it gets me excited to talk about the future and the next things. My goodness, but the things we have going on right now is really a lot. So, Worley's been completed. The Pinyon Hills Golf Course has been completed. That was a big one. On this list, we've got Civitan Golf Course, and so Many people may not know, but if you drive by Civitan today, that whole front looks completely different than what it did 6 months ago. And the council committed $600,000 of funding to kind of enhance that and modernize what it looks like.
Right. So we had some landscaping, some concrete work that was done there, some work around the pro shop, but the parking needed some help. But I think one of the most visible things, of course, will be the shade structure, and then just some ongoing improvements to the greens themselves through equipment.
Yes.
You know, we did all of the large renovation up at Pinion Hills Golf Course, but realized that Civitan needed some assistance with that equipment as well to bring, to bring that field, that grass up to what it needed to be.
Sure. No. Grass management is an important component of municipal operations. I've learned this. So yes, lots of work being done there, and then potential future work. We've talked about, doing something out there where the horseshoe pits are, and we've, a lot of things going around of what we would like to see done, or what the community rather would like to see done. But Pinion Hills Boulevard extension, people have obviously seen the construction taking place on East Main Street. That project is moving, just humming along, and we're going to receive a full update, I believe, the day after this episode airs. Julie, I think December 10th, we're going to get a full update. But that is still on track for, I believe, February of 2026. So we're seeing that one happen. Water treatment plant number 1. This is a big project. Could have been a lot more expensive than what it was, but I think David Cipher and our Waterworks team, including yourself, going out there and finding some really good financing and some options through our consultant or our operator Jacobs. That's almost a $30 million project.
Right. Now that is another one of those key projects that people don't really realize their benefit they're getting. I mean, it's one thing to say, we're getting a new park, or you're upgrading shelter down at the river, or you're doing these things that they can go and see and enjoy. People really take their water for granted until it's gone.
Sure.
And so these type of foundational projects really need to get going. And you're right. The Community Works has done a tremendous job working this project from both ends, both from finding the financing, but also really phasing it and designing it in a way that was efficient.
Sure. And this is the water treatment plant 1 on Orchard, which was built in the 1950s, I believe. And has done a great job, but it needs to be, we need to see the capacity expanded on it. We need to upgrade some things to make sure that water treatment is meeting all new, EDA, EPA requirements. And I can be honest with you, when I go to other communities, I worry about drinking tap water. I don't worry about drinking this tap water here. And I know there's still a lot of people like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the mayor drinks the tap water. I have no problem with our tap water. So they do a great job. The next one on our list is the Boundless Journey Adventure Park. This is in the old Tibbetts Middle School lot. It's 8 acres. The schools we've talked about it on the show, the schools graciously donated this property to us for the purpose of joining forces with the All Abilities Park Foundation and building something that is simply going to blow people's minds away when they consider what a park for individuals of all abilities looks like. And it's also coming along, and anticipated date there is July 2025.
Yes.
So, and that's for phase 1. There is phase 2 as well, and a phase 3 that's further down the road. But
right.
Just to clarify, Julie, we're not going to change. Well, wait, we're going to keep the walking track there.
There will still be a walking track.
Yes.
Whether it will be exactly the same walking track that's there now, probably it will change a little bit.
Yeah.
But there will absolutely still be that walking ability there. There will still be a field there.
In the big green space.
In the big green space. Because, I mean, that is, it's actually kind of amazing to drive by that intersection. I drive by now, of course, just to see how construction's going. But there's always people out there, either in the green or out doing the walking, and we want to make sure that amenity is still there. But yes, that is probably the last phase. We'll finish this first phase of the park. I hope that we're able to move into the second phase rather quickly. We already have the $1.2 million that was federal dollars through HUD. and that was through Senator Heinrich's office. So we are excited to have that as the foundation for that next phase. And I know that the TAP Foundation is already out there.
Raising money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
raising money for that next phase.
Well, it is a project worth funding as a public. So if you're looking for places where you could donate money or even donate time, I'm sure volunteer opportunities exist, and they would be a great group to get involved with. The next one that's very exciting to me is the Gateway Park. This is located around the Farmington Museum on East Main Street. It's our closest point from Main Street to the river. We've really been focusing on how we can create a dynamic field and offering and access to the river at this location. So people have driven by now, you can see the big project sign up. What's coming is on the first phase is going to be on the south side of the museum, which will include our pavilion that can be used for public uses, for the farmers, for growers market. But it's a 50-some hundred square feet facility, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be a very well-used, very dynamic space. I think it will very quickly become the catalyst for different events, not just the growers market, but I've already heard people, talking about what about craft fairs around Christmas? What about I'm hoping a smaller version of Tota Festival in the off season. There are so many other options for us to have there from a market standpoint, let alone, weddings and graduations and events like that people can just rent and enjoy. Such a great facility down there near the water.
Sure.
And it is actually coming along quite well. So the footings were just put in. The first shipment of steel for the building arrived yesterday. So you ought to see a lot of movement on that site soon.
That's great. No, and then of course that's going to tie in to a project we'll get into here in a little bit. But our interest in building a whitewater park back there, but its code name is the Farmington Ditch.
Honestly, this is another one of those great partnerships.
Yeah.
That's when you realize the council's idea for outdoor recreation and the opportunity to explore what a whitewater feature would be behind the museum, realizing that if we put that in there, what does that impact to North Farmington Ditch? A lot of people don't realize that North Farmington Ditch's water kind of goes into their head gates just downstream from the museum. And, obviously we want to make sure that we're good partners.
Sure.
So they were going after funding to do some needed upgrades for their part. We were going after funding for this whitewater recreation feature. And we were lucky enough to get together and say, hey, let's partner on this. And so we wrote a grant, and this was part of the Gold King Mine settlement funds that the state received. The second go around of it. So, taking a unfortunate event that Gold King was,
Sure.
that we all sat there and watched happen on our rivers and our environment, and then have an opportunity to kind of make something, that celebrates the rivers. That keeps the river healthy. So it's not just it's a ditch diversion. It's a recreational feature. There's also environmental. There's a fish ladder. There's other opportunities there to really kind of celebrate our proximity to the rivers in town.
It's one of those things where you're, if you could go back in time, I use this. I don't want to dishonor any of our former city founders or planners, but if we could go back in time, I have no doubt that we would change the way the city laid out so that we can incorporate the river more into our daily lives. I mean, it is that important to us, and so we're finding ways to retrofit and put things in places now where the public can have access to it, make it beautiful, and make it worth part of that quality of life that we enjoy here in the city of Farmington and San Juan County. So that's an exciting project. It's also going to have standing water, as I understand, right? So you could paddleboard and float, and I'm really excited about this project. I can't even get over it. The fact that it's coming this soon. And I think that's part of it too. That timeline for the Farmer's Ditch Whitewater feature it's on the street now for bid.
It is. It is out there.
So-
We just had our pre-bid meeting this last week. The bids for that project closes end of this month, November 26th. We really, really want to be under contract in December. We have a very small construction window. We got to do it while the river is down.
Yeah.
We've got to do it in the cold months. There's a lot of diversion of the water that has to happen to make something like this happen. So yeah, it's definitely the winter to do it. And if we miss this season, if you know we can't get it done this winter, it would have to push till next winter.
Okay. Fingers crossed that we see that come to fruition. Another one that's just recently gone out to bid, and that's the Farmington Police Department building on the Bloomfield Highway. Another interesting project, and the way this has all come to fruition, I can tell you in 2014, the first time I met Chief Hebby, he told me as a city councilor, we need a new police station. And then they had a deputy chief come in after him and said, I can't believe that we're operating a police department out of this police station. And so I told him, I was like, we're going to do everything we can, chief. But obviously the price tag for building a brand new police station, we're talking, I don't know, $30, $40 million, something very extensive. But we have, again, timing is everything. And the Hill Court building on Bloomfield Highway came up for sale, and they approached us and said we'd give you a great deal on it. And for $3 million, we managed to garner about 50,000 square foot of building space that we couldn't have asked for a better situation.
Yeah, no, it is something that I really never expected to see come by the end of my career. So I'm absolutely thrilled that this is, I actually get to kind of check that box, that it's at least out there moving forward. Again, having dealt with that building from a general services standpoint, the one that always cracked me up is the staircase. There's a staircase in the middle of that building that there's no landing at the bottom of it. It's a door. So if you tripped at the bottom of it, you'd hit the door. There's nothing there. You have to open the door to take that last step down.
Oh my goodness!
It's so not to code in terms of what we would build now.
Yeah.
Obviously everything's grandfathered in at this point, but it's time to get them a better situation.
So we got $3 million for that project. Is that correct?
Yes. So yes, we originally bought the facility for $3 million, and then we were able to secure $3 million of capital outlay dollars from the state. And so that's what the renovation for the building that will need to happen. And because as you imagine, it's this wonderful shell, and it was great office space.
Yeah.
But the police department, they tell me they need their
evidence room.
all
That's
those
pretty
things.
important.
Yeah, that's important.
The crime lab.
Labs.
But for the first time, what I think is great is that we're going to be able to bring detectives and our on-the-street guys. We're bringing everybody together into one building, and that had not been the case. And the crime lab was in another location, so everything's going to be there. It's going to be more efficient. In my mind, and Chief Hebby probably could sign up for another 10 years here because he's going to enjoy such a great facility.
You all didn't sign that in his contract?
So that is a big one. People have asked about the location being on that south side of town. Again, location for the police department. Those who are on shift, they're not at the police department. They're out on the streets. And frankly, the access from there, especially once the Pinion Hills Bridge extension project's completed, there's going to be such easy access all around the area to get from one place to another if they had to come out of that location. So feeling good about that project and excited that we're seeing it hit the streets, so to speak. So North Animas Trail extension, again, this is kind of this dedicated part. The council has said we want to see the Animas Trail completed here in the city of Farmington. We want to do it as soon as we can. And I think a few years ago we thought we could probably get it all done by now, but things are expensive. Prices have grown, and there came a point where this North Animas Trail extension, we went out to bid, and it was an $8 million, I think, response to that bid, and we didn't have $8 million to spend on it. So we've had to get creative, and I know you have done just a fantastic job of trying to find ways for us to get creative on this, but that is the next iteration. Tell us about it.
So You are absolutely correct. We put that one out to bid thinking it was closer in the 3 million range, and it came closer to 8 million. And I think when we all got over the shock and we were able to say, well, that's not going to happen right now. It was also kind of height of the pandemic. And
Yes.
so we were dealing with, kind of a lot of unknowns construction-wise. So we did. That one kind of went on the shelf again to see how we could tackle it. And the way we've tackled it is to bite off sections. We've split it up into 3 different sections, going after which ones we could do well in terms of getting grants. So this next section will be roughly from the Middle Fork Square area, behind there, obviously on the rivers, and going upstream, almost to where Pinion Hills Boulevard extension is being built.
That's great, because I want to be able to ride my bike from Foothills down to Pinion Hills Boulevard and then hit the trail that will eventually go there. And you could take that basically all the way to the hospital. I mean, it's going to go all the way to Among the Waters. I think we've got 8 consecutive miles now, and I imagine with that it'll be 10, 11, somewhere in that range. So just continue to chip away at that big project. And of course, the county's having conversations about extending it further than that. So lots going to be happening on the Animas River, and I'm proud to see that we've made that a focus for recreation and utilizing it's just beautiful landscapes back there. The Among the Waters component of that trail, that landscape back there is just amazing, especially when the sun is setting and the light's just right on the mesas. So
I think the river trails are great because each segment is different. Each segment has a different feel,
right.
And this will add yet another one.
Whitewater Wave feature, we've talked about that. That's the Farmington, the Farmer's Ditch project. And then other ones that are in design phase right now, we received $4.45 million to do a Farmington Lake, which is our reservoir. So we're looking at raising the dam in order to provide a larger capacity for drinking water here in our community. We know how important that is. And that study is going to go on until February of 2026. Anything updated on that?
So I think this is kind of one of those projects that you hand it over to the people that are doing the design work, and they're crunching numbers, and they're studying this, and they're working at things. And there's not a lot of updates as you go along, but we do know that they're kind of putting those preliminary figures together. I believe we're supposed to get some kind of update after the first of the year of a initial delivery, where we are, where we think that we're still feasible. As we look at all of the different aspects of it, this is one of those projects that probably is not going to happen in our time.
Right.
From a funding aspect, that's going to be a quite an extensive ask as we look to do that. But what else is more important as we're looking to grow this area, sustain this area, is how do we provide good, clean drinking water, healthy drinking water? And part of that is you gotta have a place to put it.
Sure do. Nope. Absolutely right. I'm excited to be a part of this. And David Seifer, our Public Works Director, and kind of his leadership behind this idea, really appreciate us. Really, I mean, you got to have big, hairy, audacious goals. And this is one that I think would be very defining for us as a community for the long term. So talked briefly just earlier, Lions Pool, it's been there since 1950s. We've done everything we can to that facility to try and keep it upgraded, and actually it doesn't look too bad. I was in there recently. It doesn't look bad at all, but we're always trying to look again for what's that next level up, so to speak, for our amenities. In this therapy pool, I'm not supposed to call it that. I was told in a meeting it's a warm water pool, but nonetheless, this project is in the design phase. It was, I believe, the original bid that came back. I know it shocked me, so we're going back for redesigns on things to figure out how we can make this work at our current aquatic center facility. So essentially adding on what I believe would be on the west side of that facility, another wing to provide, again, just a warm water therapy pool. And I think that's honestly, it's probably the most efficient way of going about that plan.
It has many efficiencies by doing that and putting it there, and it's really an opportunity for it to be more integrated generational.
Yes.
Young and older citizens alike using that pool, using it for therapy, but still enjoying the leisure pool or the big pool. And you're right. We wanted to put down everything that we heard from the community on that first round. And so what would it be if we did that? And every time we do that, we get a bit of a sticker shock when we come back on the estimate of those prices. And it's like, okay, well, then let's go back and prioritize what we heard and what we really need, and how that works. And we were able to kind of bring that down into it's still a big price tag. It's still a $14, $15 million project. But when you think of the years that we've gotten out of Lions Pool, and you think that we've basically managed to keep that going for as long as we have, we've bought ourselves several years. But we've also gone into years of more expensive construction. So it's just the reality of kind of looking at what that replacement for that facility will be. And no, you go to Lions and it doesn't look that bad. And yet I know that you all are constantly hearing from us. It's not what you're seeing on top. It's what might be happening underneath.
Sure. And it always seems to be the case anytime we talk pools. Yeah, this looks great, but trust me, what's going on here is dangerous. And but Lions is in good shape right now. We're doing all we can to keep that going until we can figure out what this looks like. Westland Park Trail, another component of our river trail. This one, of course, will come off the San Juan River because the confluence is happening at Among the Waters. That one currently in design as well. Looks like September 2025 for that.
Yes, and that's another one of those that I think when it's done, you'd be surprised kind of the different feel for it. So now you're along the San Juan, a little bit more open. This would be running along the south side of the river down there. The city actually already owns some fairly large pieces of property. So we're exploring now how to make those connections. But we have had some interest actually from one of the landowners down there who's a naturalist who really wants to see if the city is kind of challenging us to look at how we might turn some of the old, it's basically the old quarry beds, the sand pits down there that fill up with water. How can we make those more attractive to migrating birds? What kind of bird watching could we create in this area on that end of the river? And we don't have that.
Sure.
Really close by. So I think that would be a tremendous asset to give that yet again another field of the river. And of course, once the Westland Park Trail is complete, that kind of finally finishes that original vision back in the 80s, and the RUDAT study that was done for the Riverine Trail was that from Westland Park out to Pinion Hills Extension.
Really incredible time to be involved in these kind of projects. And I have to sit back and think, there's times where I travel back to where I grew up, and with smart planning and just the way the place has changed so much. And I think, what is 20 years from now going to look like in Farmington? And these kind of projects are going to be those things that people are going to take for granted, like, oh, well, it's like it's always been here. No, they haven't. And it took a lot of effort and a lot of community support to see these things happen. But it's going to be 20 years from now, I think it's going to be really, really fun to sit back and go, wow, look at that.
Well, I think it has been an amazing kind of opportunity with our Communities Transformation Economic Development Fund, these CTED dollars that you led and championed for the council to move forward on this vision, and having those dollars. And we're so excited that those dollars can be put towards some new things, but also shoring up things that need that rehabilitation, that need that help to kind of keep things going so that 20 years from now they are there and they are still viable projects.
Absolutely. Last couple on here, the Brookside Skate Park. This is another one that's kind of near and dear to me. I've been wanting to see something happen there, and develop that into a new, when it was first built, it was part of maybe one of the first iterations of skate parks in America. Skating's come a long way since then. It amazes me what skaters can do. But that is on our list. It's to be determined for a completion date, because there's a lot of these projects that we've got to get through before we can get to that one. And then Orchard Park downtown, kind of our centralized historic downtown park, that is also on the list for getting a new design and to be determined date currently set on there as well.
Right.
But excited to see what comes of that. So that's kind of just a synopsis I wanted to give the public on where we're at on these projects. There's obviously other things in the community that we're looking at and trying to work with private developers on, and hopefully we see some of those things come to fruition soon. But I think folks would look at this list and say, wow, that's a lot that's happening. It's a lot of areas that I've wanted to see develop for a very long time, or it's a lot of components that are underneath the ground that most people don't think about. Our water treatment plants, that's something that we have to prioritize, and it is prioritized. And I think as a community we should be proud of our former leaders who made it that priority, and we're going to continue that on, because I don't want to be put in a situation where we have to go to federal and state to beg for money to fix important infrastructure like our water utility or our electric utility. So making sure we're staying on that is always that focus. But yeah.
We have a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of things going, but there's also already that next kind of grouping that's kind of bubbling under the surface, whether that's an industrial park up by the airport or, like we said, the next phases of the All Abilities Park. There's always, I think that's the fun. There's always something on the horizon that's kind of the next thing that we're looking at.
There's always some of those things that are fun that are bubbling, and then there's ones that are kind of the gut punch, like, oh, wait a minute, what? What's happening? Oh my gosh, how are we going to fix that? Oh, well, that makes sense. It's 30 years old, so I guess that's what happens.
There is always that, yes.
But that's the fun thing about municipal government. There's always something fun going on.
No, it is. There is always something, and there's, I mentioned before, it's been a great time working with the team on these projects with various elected officials. I'm lucky I finish off this career with such a great council, and so it's been a good run of it. I look forward to attending and participating in events, perhaps from the other side of things for a while.
Well, Julie, I will tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to have what I would say you at your peak in your career, where you've been able to culminate all this experience and all this knowledge and all this know-how at a moment where I say a lot of these things, these projects, it's kind of a perfect storm. There was a lot of bad things that happened that led the federal government to open up the coffers of money and just print money. And as much as I have my own philosophical views against things like that, frankly, I want us to make sure that we bring as much of that money to Farmington as we possibly can. And how you have kind of driven that bus and taken that up is really proving itself. And as I said, 20 years from now, they're going to talk about, man, what was going on after 2020 that all these things just got done? And it was a perfect storm situation, but we are fortunate here to have had the right people in the right place ready to attack it in the way that it's been attacked and to get it done. So thank you for your service of 30 plus years to municipal government here, both between City of Farmington and Bloomfield. You're no doubt have left an indelible mark of your own on this community, and I hope we can continue to carry it forward for many, many, many years. Keeping what would Julie do in mind? What would Julie do? So thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, taken away quite a bit of information. It can be a lot to take in. A lot of this information is available on the City of Farmington's website. Every single bit of this conversation occurred in front of a camera and can be viewed online through our system, where we reproduce all of the city council meetings and the minutes. So I just kindly ask, if you're engaged in this, you're interested in this, and you want to share more about it, pay attention to these things that are going on. It's fun, it's exciting, and it's definitely informational, and it's something to be very proud of, I believe, for your community. So again, Deputy City Manager Julie Baird joining us today, you joining us. We pray that you have a fantastic holiday season. God bless you. Merry Christmas. And we'll see you here next time on the Mayor's Table.